the one thing that defines the difference between winning and losing is one's attitude. It's one's disposition. It's what they bring to the table every single day. An attitude is nothing more than an inner voice, an inner concept. It is something that you believe in. It is something that you have learned. It is part of your being. It's down inside. It's deep inside. You cultivate it, and when you cultivate it and it becomes who you are, you bring it to everything you do in life. You bring it to every aspect of your life. You don't just bring it, and I don't just bring it to the Miami Heat every day. I bring it to the office. I'll bring it to my wife. I'll bring it to the family. I'll bring it here to the Miami Arena. I'll bring that attitude every single day in my life. You see, I don't get that attitude just by coaching my players the right way. I don't develop that attitude. They don't bring their attitude to me and ask me to develop it for them. They either have it or they don't. You see, we don't get that attitude just by raising our children the right way. We don't. You see, somewhere along the line, you have to understand that the one thing that can define the difference between winning and losing is a person's approach, a person's belief, a person's expectation, a person's mission, a person's whatever that will allow them to try to find a way to go above and beyond. I also remember the voice of my father. And it's a strong voice. I can remember in 1970, you know, when it all changed for me, and I was sort of at a crossroads, an early crossroads in my life when it came to my profession. I was just cut by the San Diego Rockets. It's okay, and I was out there. I was only 25 years old. I had 4 plastic plants, a king-size bed, and a bedspread. I had a bunch of Four Tops and Smokey Robinson and the Miracles and Temptation records and a little 45 Victrola. I had all that, okay? I was $5,000 in debt. I was just about ready to get married to the woman that I am still married to, Chris Rodstrom. But I had a yellow Corvette, too, okay? So it was all good, you know? And I was getting married that summer, and I can remember my father and my mother came out for the first time on a plane to visit me, and they came to the reception and the wedding, obviously, and it was a wonderful night, and I had spent that evening with my dad, and I'll never forget this, and we spent the whole day talking about my dilemma. Cut, in debt, just getting married, you know, not having much. And now that I look back and think about that, I think now in this perspective, what a wonderful, wonderful time in my life it was then, because, you know, we always go through these problems. M. Scott Peck wrote a great book called The Road Less Traveled, and you always wonder, you know, why a book is on the New York Times bestseller list for 12 years, whatever. I'm not promoting his book, but it's a wonderful book, and he said in the first sentence, life is difficult, you know, that it is tough, that it is hard. When you understand that it is hard and that it is difficult, and it's all relative to your existence, then it becomes normal. It becomes something that happens every day. I didn't understand that at that time. I was just sort of silently frustrated because I didn't make it as a professional basketball player. I spent the whole day with my dad, and he gave me the advice, and he talked to me again about what I had to do, and he sent me on my way. And I'll never forget when we sent him home from the reception, he got into this old 1965 red Chevrolet Caprice that had primer on the side. It was my wife's father's car. And as he was in the back seat with Mom, he started to drive away. He was being driven away by her brother, by my wife's brother. And as he was going away, I'll never forget him sticking his arm out the window and his head out the window, and he was like waving back at me, and he said, Pat! And he was like waving to me. I have one, you know, Pat. And as he was moving away, he was saying something. And I began to chase after him in the car. I said, what is it, Dad? Yeah, what is it? And he said, just remember what I always taught you. Just remember this, that someplace, somewhere, sometime, you simply have to plant your feet. You got to stand firm and make a point about who you are and what you believe in. And when that time comes, Pat, you simply got to do it. You see, those were the last words that I ever heard my father say to me, because he died that summer. And, you know, it's a profound thing for me. You know, I could never get through telling that story ever to anybody without crying. But now it's a voice. You see, it's a very strong voice. And each and every one of us, you see, has a voice. We have a voice inside of us. Whether it's yours or whether it is from other people who can influence you, teach you, help you, you have a voice, a very strong voice. We are all products of our education. We're products of our environment, of our experiences. That's all we are, and that's all we have to offer. And you got to bring that forward. You see, a voice is nothing more than an attitude. One of the great universal truths in this world is that you can only receive what you're willing to give. And you know what happens? It's one person. It always comes down to one person, that one singular person can influence. One singular person can change and define. And somewhere along the way, you got to ask yourself, can I be that person? A man or woman's greatest fear, and you might even say a city or country, you might even say a team or company. You can put anything you want it into there that you want. A man or woman's greatest fear is their fear of extinction. But what they fear more than that is to become extinct with insignificance. A man or woman's greatest fear is their fear of extinction, but what they fear more than that is to become extinct with insignificance. And what that means to me is this, simply, that all people really want to know is that what they do in life and with their life and with other people matters, and it counts. And you know what? There aren't going to be a lot of other people out there that are going to give you that recognition. It is something that you have to feel. I can remember in 1969, there was a company by the name of Grauman Aerospace. Grauman Aerospace, underachieving, okay? An air transport company. And they were not motivated. They were a bunch of clock punchers. They'd come in and punch in the clock, and they would punch out. They didn't really care about products. Sales were down. Morale was down. People didn't care. They came to work because they needed a check. And then all of a sudden, one day, they won a government contract. And that government contract gave them the opportunity to do something significant for mankind. They were the company that designed the Lunar Excursion Module that in 1969 that landed on the moon, and when Neil Armstrong, you know, dropped off of that step and said, one small step for man, one giant step for mankind, they knew they contributed to something that was historical, you see. When they knew they were building that Lunar Excursion Module, all of a sudden things changed. They were coming in earlier. They were leaving later. There was more, you know, spirit. There was something that they felt that they were doing that was important. And I think somewhere along the way you have to understand that.